Hey you guys, this is Dee Edwards. I am anointed to pull individuals out of poverty through the power of entrepreneurship. I am super excited that you are here today because I come to bring you the word. Be anxious for nothing, because people who are anxious for stuff end up not obtaining all of the things that God have for them. So thank you guys so much for sharing this video out. What's up, Jenny? Hey, Amanda. What's up, Miss B. Jetta? Hey, Brenda. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys so much for sharing this broadcast out. I do want to give a quick shout out to my pastor, Pastor Michael Anthony Edwards II of the Celebration Church, and to my coach, Coach Sophia. Thank you so much for pouring into my life. So listen, I got to bring you guys this word real fast as I put on my glasses to share with you guys this word that God gave to me about being anxious. Many times when we're believing God for things and he's not moving as quickly as we would like for him to move and things are not coming together, we tend to become anxious. Hey baby, thanks for tuning in. So people who are anxious tend to make a lot of mistakes. Therefore, they're never able to obtain the thing that God truly has for them. And I want to show it to you in scripture. So this comes from 1 Samuel 28. During this time, Saul and the people in the land, they were banned from being able to call upon mediums. That's right. They were banned and they could not consult the spirits of the dead. So watch this. In Psalms 1 Samuel 28, starting at the 4th verse. It says, the Philistines set up their camp at Shunem, and Saul gathered all of the army of Israel and camped at Gilboa. When Saul saw the vast Philistine army, he became frantic with fear. And so the first time that anxiety or becoming anxious for something happens is when we tend to get in our emotions, when we begin to look at a certain thing and things are not going the way that we want them to, when it seems as if our enemies are about to overtake us, when it seems like we're overwhelmed with our bills, things are not going well in our household, our kids are acting up, when it seems like your bank account is low, that's when the enemy comes in and start playing with your emotions. That's why it's important that as you move forward, that you guard your emotions. The enemy will always cause you to move out of your emotions. Your emotions have the ability to move you out of line, move you out of sync, and move you out of time of God. Ask Saul. Saul became frantic based upon what he saw. He didn't concentrate on what he heard or even what God had done previously. He became frantic based upon what he saw. And so the enemy will always use your sight in order to use your emotions to pull you out of alignment with God. So guard your emotions and watch what you are looking at. There's no need of you sitting around looking at those bills. Ain't no need of you sitting around looking at what's dead, especially if you don't have what it takes to meet the needs. That's how the enemy comes in. The enemy comes in through your sight, and once he's in through your sight, he starts using your emotions. Saul became frantic with fear because of what he saw. Thank you for sharing this out. So he became frantic with fear. So watch this. In verse number 6, he asked the Lord, what should he do? But the Lord refused to answer him either by dreams or by sacred lights. And so he went to God initially. Watch this. He went to God initially, but because he did not receive a response from the Lord, he began to take things into his own hands. And you got to be careful that when you don't hear the voice of God, be careful about your next move. Because when Saul did not hear from God, because he initially went to God and God did not respond to him, he didn't respond to him by a dream. The Bible said he didn't respond to him by a prophet. God did not respond to this man whatsoever. So he became anxious. He got out the will of God because he did not hear the voice of God. So when you're not hearing God speak, you need to stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. When you're not hearing God's voice, don't make a move until you hear God's voice. Saul did not hear God's voice, so he decided to do things on his own. So the Bible said, watch this. It said in verse 7, Saul then said to his advisors, find a woman who is a medium so I can go and ask her what to do. Now keep in mind that everybody in the land was banned from contacting a medium, but Saul decided to take things in his own hand. He said, since I'm not going to hear from God, then I'm going to go find somebody who can be the voice of God. And y'all got to be extra careful that when God has told you something or when God have not responded, you got to be careful as to who you consult. This man decided to consult a medium. He decided to consult somebody who was not in the will of God. And that's why you got to seek wise and godly counsel, not just any counsel. You got to seek godly counsel as to your next move. When God is not speaking to you and when you are not hearing God's voice, be careful as to who you turn to for your counsel. My God, be careful as to who you turn to that will become the voice of God in your life. Listen. Thank you for sharing this out. I know that this is God because some of you all are sitting there frustrated because you haven't heard God said anything and you're turning to the wrong people. People are telling you to do something that's contrary to what you have already heard God say. Somebody's telling you to do something contrary that's contrary to your convictions, contrary to what you know that God has already told you. So somebody's telling you something contrary because you're anxious for the results of God. My goodness. Be careful when you become anxious for the results of God. Yeah. Because if God said it, he's going to make sure that it come to pass as long as you obey him. Because if ye are willing and obedient, you're going to eat the good of the land. And so the results come through obedience, right? But when you become disobedient, when you become anxious for the results, you get out of alignment. People who are anxious tend to make emotional decisions. People who are anxious tend to make quick decisions. People who are anxious tend to make more mistakes than they would have ever done. Don't be anxious for nothing, but by prayer and supplication, make your request known before God. Don't be anxious for nothing in this season. Be anxious for nothing at all. So watch this. So it said that Saul said, find a woman who is a medium so I can go and ask her what to do. His advisors replied, there's a medium at Endor. Now his advisors, they obeyed Saul. Now his advisors knew that Saul was not supposed to contact a medium. Isn't it funny that the people who are closest to you won't hold you accountable to the word of God in your life? Isn't it funny that the people who are closest to you should be holding you accountable to what God said? Isn't it funny that the advisors, watch this, it was the advisors who knew that Saul was not supposed to be contacted a medium, was the one that found somebody. My goodness, Lord have mercy. Listen, that's why I said that y'all got to be careful. You need people. See, y'all so busy with trying to keep people in your corner in your life that you like. I'm not about that. I need people who are going to hold me accountable to doing the will of God. I need people who are going to hold me accountable to stand in alignment with God because of the people that Saul had in his life is one of the reasons why Saul got out of alignment. See, there's one thing for me to want to be out of alignment, but then when I start talking to the people that's around me and they start agreeing with me to be out of alignment, oh my God, you got to be careful as to who have your voice. You got to be careful as to who's surrounded by you during the season when it seems as if God is not moving, when it seems as if God is not speaking. So listen, in verse number 8, it says, so Saul disguised himself by wearing ordinary clothes instead of his royal robes. And he went to the woman's house at night, accompanied by 2 of his men. So in this scripture, God is showing me because Saul became anxious, he lost his identity. This man could not show up in his royal robe because he knew that what he was doing wrong. Anytime that you got to conceal your identity, anytime that you can't show up and be who God has called you to be so that you can engage and do other things, you need to know that you're automatically outside the will of God. This man lost his identity. This man was supposed to be wearing royal robes because of who he was, but instead he had to go in a disguise. My goodness, when you are anxious, you will never be able to operate in the place or in the position that God has called you to, because you'll be too busy wandering from here to there. You'll be too busy starting stuff, stopping stuff, starting stuff, stopping stuff, being inconsistent because you are anxious for the results. So be anxious for nothing. This man couldn't even show up and be himself because he was anxious. And I need you guys to really take an inventory of your life. Have you been showing up as somebody else? Have you been operating out of place and out of position? Have you been trying to be like somebody else because maybe they're getting the results that you desire and you are not seeing the results that you desire? You got to be careful not to take on the identity of other people while you are trying to wait on the voice of God, or while you're waiting on the results of God. Be careful. Be careful. The worst thing that I could have ever done was to allow somebody to be in my life and take on my identity, because after a while they started thinking they was me. Be careful not to take on the identity of somebody else because you're trying to reap their results. So Saul disguised himself by wearing ordinary clothes instead of his royal robe. Then he went to the woman's home at night, and he went there with two men. Watch this. I have to talk to a man who has died, he said. Will you call up this spirit for me? Verse number 9. The medium said, are you trying to get me killed? The woman demanded. You know that Saul have outlawed all of the mediums and all who consult the spirits of the dead. Why are you setting a trap for me? And God was showing me that when you become anxious, not only are you disobedient, but you cause other people to be disobedient as well. This lady knew that she was not supposed to be consulting the dead. She knew that she was not supposed to be calling on the spirit of the dead. Thank you for sharing this out. She knew that. And so because Saul was anxious, she became disobedient. That's why, let me tell you, there's so many times in my life that I want to give up. I want to throw in the towel. I want to treat people the way that they treat me. Y'all don't understand. Just because people clap and I don't clap back don't mean that I don't have a clap. I have a clap. Do you understand me? I have a clap. I was raised in the hood, by the hood, so I'm still connected to the hood, right? And so when things go down and happen in my life, there's a part of me that wants to raise up, but I can't do it. Because I got not only the weight of me on my shoulder, I got the weight of those who look up to me on my shoulder. I got those who are dependent on me to be obedient and to be in the will of God. So don't ever think just because you get away with clapping on somebody that they don't have a clap back. No, boo, I'm trying to be obedient. I'm trying to be obedient to the voice and to the will of God so that I won't cause somebody else to fall, so that I won't become disobedient. So the medium said, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get me killed? When you are anxious, you will cause other people to be disobedient. And so when I want to get out of myself, I said, my God, I can't, I'm about to get them. And God said that even when you can't hold your composure for you, hold them for the people that believe in you. Hold it for the people that believe in you. Do you understand me? Saul caused somebody else to disobey because he became anxious and because he became disobedient. And when you become disobedient, and the Bible even talks about the one that tempts other people to do wrong. Woe to you. Woe to you. Woe to the penalty. And that's why people are so anxious, listen, for influence. They're so anxious for followings. Do you understand that the greater your influence, the greater that God called you to be obedient? Because to whom much is given, much is required. So because I have influence and because I know that I'm influential, God is requiring me to respond at a level that I normally would not have if I didn't have the influence of the following. So you got to understand that with influence and following, that's another level of you that got to die. That's another level of you that can't respond. That's another level of you that can't put certain things on social media. That's another level of you that can't handle things the way that you normally would have. Because now, when your influence rises in the natural, in the world, it also rises in the spiritual. So God is calling you to a greater level of accountability because of the people that's following you, because you are influential. You understand me? That's why a lot of times I don't act up. That's why a lot of times I don't say nothing. That's why a lot of times I don't treat people the way they treated me. There are a lot of times why I don't blast on folks. Do you understand me? That's why. It's because God is requiring more of me, not because I want to give God more, but because he's requiring more of me, because there are people that need me to be who God has called me to be. And there are people who need you to continue to be in the will of God, to do the right thing. People need you to. There's somebody that's dependent on your obedience, because if you get outside the will of God, there's people that will get outside the will of God. Watch this. So, I was raised on the street, in my entire life. Even when I was doing wrong, I was always influential. And I've always had a group of people who would just follow me and basically do whatever that I did. And so I remember when I gave my life to Christ, those people who were following me, I said, listen, now I know y'all followed me when I was in the street. I need y'all to follow me this way. And there are some people who did, but there are some people who did not. And so, a few years ago when things started shaking in my life, because I'm still connected to the hood in the streets, and because I love my hood friends and my street friends, they come to your rescue when you're in trouble. Because when you're raised on the street, there's a sense of loyalty there. That you ain't got to talk to people for years. Now, which church folks would get like this? There's people that you don't have to talk to for years. That when things go down and when you need them, they just show up. Oh, I love that. So when things went haste and went left, my folks came to my job like, Dee, what do you want us to do? How you want us to handle this? And I said, I don't. Because God was telling me in that moment, Dee, if you give them the okay to do what's wrong, that is on your hands. That's on your hands. And so the decisions that you make, it ain't because you weak. Folks better just be glad that you saved. I don't even know why I went there, but people better be glad that you saved. So listen, let me get back to the scripture. Okay, so she said, are you trying to get me killed? The woman demanded. You know that Saul has outlined all of the mediums and all who consult the spirits of the dead. Why are you setting a trap for me? And so finally, the woman, she ended up doing exactly what Saul wanted her to do. But this is the part that I really want you guys to get to when you become anxious for things. In verse number 17, because Saul consulted a medium, because he did not wait on the voice of God. Thank you for sharing this out. This is where you would want to share this. Because he did not wait on the voice of God. Verse number 17 said, the Lord had done just as he said he would. He has torn the kingdom from you and had given it to your rival, David. When you are anxious, you start making decisions that are outside the will of God, and you will lose absolutely everything. Saul lost everything, and it was turned over. His kingdom, his throne was turned over to his rival David. And this is what I want you guys to understand, that when you become anxious, and you start making those quick decisions and start making those emotional decisions, you have the ability to lose everything. Everything. And this is why it is so important that you keep the right people in your corner. Not just the right people for me are godly people that I can call and I can be vulnerable. I can be bare. I can lay it all. I can let them know that I'm struggling. I can let them know that I'm almost right there. Want to be outside the will of God. Because I know that if I step outside the will of God, that I can lose everything. And so before you make another decision, especially when you feel like you're not hearing the voice of God, you have to seek godly counsel. And if anybody is telling you to do something contrary to what you know you heard God say, contrary to what is written in this word, that person you should not seek as your counsel. They may still remain in your life, but they will not be your counsel. Because godly counsel would never tell you to do something contrary to what God has told you or contrary to what is written in this book. Be careful about your next decisions. Be careful as to who you consult, and be mindful that when you are anxious, y'all understand? When you're anxious, when you're trying to make things happen in your timing, when you're trying to make things happen when you want them to. Because to me, that sounds like witchcraft. That sounds like a witch. A person that can manipulate an outcome operates in witchcraft. Because the results would have normally been given to you just because you obey God. But because you try to manipulate a situation, that's witchcraft. And you're operating as a witch. I'm just telling you. And God, let me tell you, God had to tell me. He was like, Dee, hold on. You trying to control everything. He was like, that's witchcraft. When you rebel and do something opposite of what God has told you to do, that's not just disobedience. That's witchcraft. And people don't want to hear that. But that's the truth. Hey, Anisha. Okay? So just be careful that in this next season, when I say season, that could be today. Okay? That could be tomorrow. And I know, I'm telling you, whether you guys receive it or not, anytime that I come on Facebook Live to give a message, this thing is straight from God. I know that I'm a prophetic intercessor. Straight from God. I won't come in here and tell, this ain't what I want to talk to y'all about. But this is what God told me to do. Okay? So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I pray that you go back and you catch the replay for those who are just joining us. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Shamika. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, Rakita. I love you. Hello, Arnold. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Ty. Hey, you guys. Okay. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Rakita said, keep your hand clean and your heart pure. That's it. Keep your hand clean and your heart pure. Especially when you're waiting on God to do something in your life. Don't take it in your own hand trying to make things happen. Hey, Jennifer. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for sharing this out. God bless you all. Until we meet again, I'll see you guys at the top. Toodles.